Welcome to our Wednesday night session. I'm Hanny Freiwat with the Noohra Foundation, and I'm going to go ahead and open tonight's talk with the Lord's Prayer, the way Jesus spoke it over 2,000 years ago. Lishana Aramaic, with the Aramaic tongue, or with the Aramaic in the Aramaic language. So if you would take a second and join me in prayer. أوند وشميانة قداش شماخ تأثي ملكوتاخ نهوي صبيانخ إكند وشمية أبر حولان لحمة سنكانا يومنا واشلقلان حوبين إكند دبحنان شوقن لحيوين لا تعلن لنسيونا إلا قصا من بيشة مثل دي لاخي ملكوثة حي لو تشبحته العالم عالمين Amen. So last week I got a question that I thought about later, and I want to read it again, and it might launch us in the right direction, or Spirit might take me somewhere else, because I prepared a whole other direction. So and by the way, if you're new with us, I usually speak for 30-40 minutes, and then we do an open Q&A session. You can use the Q&A button on your on the app or on the computer for the webinar to send me your questions. I try to cover all those during the session. If anything doesn't get covered, sometimes we push it to the next time I speak. And next week, most likely it will be me. Dr. Eriko is traveling, and I will be traveling as well. But so we're playing it by ear right now. But I'm the one scheduled to do next week, unless Dr. Eriko feels well enough when he returns home to do the session. So that's my only announcement today. So the question, which was a very good question, and made me I didn't want to ignore it because it's. So the question that came was that the gospel, according to John, does not have any parables like the synoptic gospels, right? And then they continue, that's a question mark, and then only passages that come close are John 10:6 and John 15:1, but those are not parables, but rather proverbs, right? So and I answered in a way that how John was written differently for so many reasons than what we call the synoptic, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And you are absolutely the person who asked the question. The only one that some scholars consider it a parable is that one in chapter 10. And that one is about Jesus. See, I have my marking somewhere else, but let's go to that, because it's an important. It has almost a structure of a parable. I also have I taught this before, the parables of Jesus. Dr. Eriko wrote those, and he went back to the Aramaic and just really captured the essence from the Aramaic of what we consider the parables, and highlighted or took out some of the things that probably were added by scribes. I don't know if I think the foundation might have a copy of that, and I don't know how we handle that. Lynn is on the call, so if you're interested in that, reach out, and maybe we can get a PDF or something to you. No promises though. So in John chapter 10, it opens like this: "Truly, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter by the door into the sheepfold, but climbs up from another place, is a thief and a bandit. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the door is open," etc. So Jesus most likely. So this really has almost a structure of a parable, and what Jesus was doing in that story is he was basically comparing himself to the Pharisees and the scribes who are not quite a part of his flock, and because they strayed away and they followed a different path to to spirituality and went away from the message of the kingdom and went away, most importantly, from the duty that was put on the people who followed the religion of Abraham. See, I don't want to even get, I'm not going to give it a label. I'm going to try really hard today to tell you that the nuance of what happened with the Abrahamic message. And I'm gonna go back now. So hopefully I'm addressing just to close the question. So it has the closest thing in the Gospel of John to a parable. There are some other parts of the Gospel of John where scholars, they call them almost like John parables or Johannine parables, because they're very metaphorical and not quite follow the way Jesus was teaching. The parables of Jesus in the Synoptic Gospels and Matthew, Mark, and Luke are so down to earth, so deep, yet so simple. Because remember, Jesus doesn't have a Bible to hand people. Like when you showed up, and the way he gave those parables, it was like almost an ad hoc people gathering around him and or wanting to study with him. Sometimes with the apostles and disciples, and he came up like almost with one-liners because, as I said, he doesn't have a book to hand you. Today, you go listen to any speaker, even Dr. Erico, when he goes to churches, more often than not, there is a table outside. As you leave, you can probably buy a book or two, and that reminds you of the essence of what he was talking about. We also record things and so forth. So Jesus did not have the benefit of that. It was a very oral culture that he grew up in. Most people in his time did not read and write. So the parables that you find in Matthew, Mark, and Luke are very, it's first that they're almost, I would say 99% of the time are about the kingdom, because he wanted to leave the people who came to listen to him with a message about the kingdom so they can take it, digest it, spread it, share it, and wanted it to stick with them. And that was the beginning really of what became the Gospels. And if you go back and read the Gospels carefully, and I'm not saying do that to your Bible, but if you take a highlighter to transitional sentences where Jesus is walking from here to there, some commentary, sometimes even the parables. When Jesus told the parable, and you'll know when a scribal addition was put on there, or when the movement later added to it, is Jesus left you kind of hanging most of the time, wanted you to think about it. He did not end it like when he talked about the good Samaritan. When we know the story as the Good Samaritan, so who is your good neighbor? That's the way it ends in the Gospels, and that makes you think about. So it has a judgmental aspect of it, that sentence by itself. So then, if your good neighbor is X, then your bad neighbors are Y and Z. And the people, that creates separation. Jesus was not focused on that. He was focused on bringing up the human spirit. He was focused on highlighting good behavior so we can follow it, and warning us of behavior that sometimes is dictated by religion or by culture, by some type of belief system, sometimes by fear, that keeps us from being fully human. And so and that's why the parable, if we call it a parable in John, does not fit that, because the Jesus style, traditional style of parables, but it fits more of a story that he was warning his followers. Now remember, John, as I said last time I spoke, it was written for the followers of Jesus who now are lost and are being picked at by the scribes and the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and some of them ran away to back. Most of them actually returned back to Galilee. So the movement was getting fractured quickly and is losing its focus. And the Gospel of John was written to warn against that fracture and that the return back to following the teachings of the Pharisees and Sadducees and the scribes, and going back to a religion that was not working anymore. So Jesus, when he said, I have come here to fulfill the law, not to destroy it, because back to what I want to take you tonight, is when Abraham received that. See, Abraham in Genesis chapter 12, this is a conversation between the Lord and Abraham. Now the Lord said to Abraham, chapter 12, verse 1, depart from your country. See, Abraham had an inclination of something other than those little figurines that they were carrying, the idols of their gods, the gods of Mesopotamia. They had a god for everything, for war, for peace, for agriculture, for rain, for fertility. So they had so many, because something inside us knows that there is more than what we feel more. And they attributed that, the early religions always attributed that to some force, usually part of nature, the sun, the moon. But Abraham had this inclination that there is a spiritual connection between us and the universe that is, you cannot see it, you cannot put it into a form, you cannot make it look like a goat because that's part of the idols that they used. So here is God talking to him, depart from your country and from the place of your nativity and from your father's house. See, even father's house, leave your father's house to a land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great people. So he's telling him he's going to become basically a beginning of something new. And I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. And in you shall all, this is what I wanted to talk about. And in you, okay, shall all the families of the earth be blessed. See, this is so important, and this is often lost. I have verse after verse from the old what we call the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible, where the idea of the blessing that came to Abraham and passed on to his line. Why were they considered? This is where we get the idea of the chosen people. Chosen for what? Okay, so you have a history of Abraham here and Jesus here, and in between that message of the blessing, and we have a lot of stories. We did Micah the other day, or Micah, the prophet Micah, how he saw that for the Jewish people to live in peace, they have to accept other nations' gods, and they have to stop fighting with them. They hopefully lead them towards this great God, Allah, Elohim, the Ithya Rabbah, so that the God of Abraham. So, but in between the message that bloodline and tribal alliance, because see, Abraham left his dad's house, his family's house. He left his tribe. He did something unthinkable in his time, in his culture. And he migrated and went up from southern Mesopotamia and through what we call today Syria, down all the way down to what we call today, around the Gaza City, where we hear about what's going on right now with the very unfortunate and the very horrible situation that we have there. That's where Abraham settled in with the Canaanites. And he was such a good man, a wise man, that they actually gave him land to plant and to bury his wife and so forth. So his wisdom and his new founded the God, this new God that we're calling Allah or Elohim, is now his method of blessing all the families of the earth. Okay, so that's when he was raising his kids, he wasn't telling them this is our God and we're going to hold on tight and not tell anybody about it. The mission then was to go take this God, this lovely God. And when you read about Abraham's encounter and interaction with God, it's so human. It's so, I mean, he was a pal. That's what we refer to Abraham in my culture. And that's, it's the pal of God, God's buddy, God's friend. And then the city that's named after him, Hebron, in Arabic is Al Khalil, which is the city of the pal of God. So this is the relationship that Abraham wanted. But then, you know, and then when you follow that all the way till we get to Moses, Jacob and Isaac and so forth, they were tribal, and the sons of Jacob and that became Israel, and 12 tribes came out of that. So the line of Abraham started expanding and growing into a large group of tribes who were fighting with each other and with their cousins and so forth, because everybody around there got intermarried. That was how you formed alliances. That's so that they somehow they closed in on themselves. Those 12 tribes became distinguished. They used to circumcise, so that differentiated them with some other tribes. Though historically, and I have a few books talk about how the concept of circumcision was popular in different parts of the Near East, what we call the Near East. So it's like in Saudi and in Mesopotamia and so forth. Some tribes had the idea of circumcising as a part of signing a deal with their gods. So Abraham and that the whole circumcision and so forth, but that created the bond. This is how I prove my commitment to this new God, Allah Elohim. But then it became a differentiating quality that differentiated them from their neighbors, from the Canaanites and the Philistines and the Edomians. And so there were so many people in that area. And because it's tribal mindset, they all needed water and they all needed food for their animals and themselves. So they sometimes encroached on other areas, and there were constant wars. When the Prophet Muhammad came into Saudi, what we call today Saudi, with Arabia, that same mindset, same dynamics were happening in his place, and that was 600 years after Jesus, over 600 years after Jesus. So that area had, when you need to understand the culture, because it's until today, tribal mindset exists, tribal territory exists. That the dynamics change. We're not in the Near East, that the issues are not water and so forth. Now it's oil, mineral. Water is still very critical, but we see how it's still shifting, and the people are still the same type of mix that Jesus had to deal with. So Abraham was supposed to be this new God. Told him, "You take me to the world, and then you use that to bring peace to and knowledge and enlightenment to all." And and then, as I said, until we get to Moses, the people were just supposed to behave nicely. They're supposed to be good people. They're supposed to take the good qualities of this God, and in a way that the respect for this God, and be good people. So Jesus, when he came, he now is dealing with a very fractured society. He's living in Nazareth, and he's walking around in Galilee. And Galilee that was known as Galilee of the Gentiles, because a lot of people during the incursions of the Assyrians and the Chaldeans and the Romans and so forth, it's a lush land. It's you can plant trees there. There is the Sea of Galilee where you can do fishing, and there is some water supply from there, so you can have some farming. So it's fairly, it's arid, but it's not as harsh as like Saudi, that the southern part of Palestine or Saudi, or the Jordanian, what today the Jordanian desert. So it had a good foundation to build cities and build culture. So Jesus comes in, and he's now facing a very different Jewish religion, if we're going to call it Jewish. it's really a Hebrew, because that was the label that was put on Abraham because he crossed the river, and that's the meaning of the word Hebrew. So the Hebrews have lost that focus. The book of Jonah tells us, in their history, way before Jesus, that Jonah, as a prophet of Elohim, really struggled because he was given a mission to go to the Gentiles and help them avoid disaster. And he resisted it. He was like, no, 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 I'm tribal. I'm supposed to help my people. And that continued. And every time you read the prophets, Isaiah, Micah, Ezekiel, all of them have, at some moment of their prophecy, they see that the fact that we are not doing what we're supposed to do, we're supposed to bring goodness, and we're not bringing goodness, and we're veering away from the way that Abraham set for us. So Jesus comes in and he says, I'm going to do this, and I am going to move past just the Jewish people. But he had a challenge. Just like if I told you today, and I'm not an expert in, let's say, Buddhism or Hindu religion, and if you are all coming here, coming to listen to the message of Jesus, and I started talking about Hindu gods and goddesses and temples and different gurus and so forth, you would probably be totally lost. You'd be going like, I don't, and maybe some of you are much more educated than I am and might relate to it. So, and that's a good thing. That's the example I want to give you, is that when Jesus started going and he's defined his ministry, the ministry of the kingdom, and what goodness means. He started traveling, and during his travel, Dr. Erko did a great. If you haven't listened to last week's talk, go back and listen to it. He talked about his interaction with the centurion, the Roman soldier, and that's in Matthew chapter 8. Throughout his ministry, Jesus was found or ran into Gentiles, people who are not Jewish, people who do not belong to the religion. So in Jesus's time, I probably can group the people that he interacted with. I'm at the fourth group, but he had the people he recruited. They had to understand him, so therefore, most likely, they were Hebrews. They were of followers of the Jewish tradition. Now, and I broke my rule up 1,000 times now. So they became so when I say Jewish, think followers of the God Elohim. Okay, so followers of the God Elohim or Allah, he found those. Then he ran into the religious authority, usually described in the Bible with Pharisees, Sadducees. We know there were Essenes around his time, but they were more isolated, so it doesn't talk much. You never see the word Essene in the Bible, though some scholars kind of find this person might have been. Some people even thought Jesus might have joined them for a while, but we have no proof of any of that. So the authority, including the temple. So the temple also is a representation. So that the high priests and so forth, all those were the group number 2. And group number 3 is everybody else who is not a follower of the religion of Abraham. So, and those people, just like the example I gave you, if tonight I just start out of the blue talking about Buddhism, you might get lost. But his reputation was expanding, and people know about people. We're talking about a small geographical area, and they're really good. I said it's an oral culture, and oral culture is really good at spreading news very fast. So a shepherd who hears this when they go up to the mountain in the morning, and by midday they run into shepherds from other villages who came to the same area. They tell them what they saw. It goes back that way, and the next day it goes bigger and bigger and bigger. It spreads quickly. Rumors spread very fast in oral culture, and people have a tremendous way of remembering. And sometimes the details, just like the telephone game, sometimes the stories become bigger or smaller, or disappear in one direction and grow in another direction. So Jesus here now is running into Gentiles, and we notice that his interactions with the Gentiles are almost at 100%. He's hesitant, yet they know enough about him. So they drag, because usually they're asking for healing or something like that. And if you compare that to his interactions with the Pharisees and the scribes and the Sadducees, and sometimes the Jewish merchants and so forth, most of those interactions were confrontational. They were trying to trap him. They were not sincere in the way they approached him, because they saw him as a threat. And that's the difference between Abraham coming with a simple religion and wanting to make the world a better place for all through this, away from idol worship, away, most importantly, away from human sacrifice, away from tribal alliances. Remember, he broke that tribal alliance. He walked away from his family and set up in a completely different geographical area. He had faith also in this religion. So this religion was, a lot of it had to be based on faith. Again, that the idol worship, your faith in this thing can be very flimsy, and that's why sometimes they had multiple gods for the same thing, or the gods evolved. In the religion of Abraham, we have one God responsible for everything. And when Jesus came, he referred to that God as the parent, the loving parent. His language said the Father, Awwa. But in today's language, what he was referring to is a completely loving, unconditionally parent who only saw good in us. And that's why when Jesus spoke about that parent, he said that parent loves the good and the wicked. His rain falls on the good and the wicked. His sun shines on the good and the wicked. And he feeds all the birds of the sky. He doesn't go like Jewish birds only, or birds who are Galilean or anything like. So he was always talking about inclusion, inclusion, inclusion. And then he focused on the quality of the people. He wanted the peacemakers. He didn't say the followers of Abraham, the believers in Yahweh or in Allah, peacemakers. They're the ones who are going to be known as the children of God. So any peacemaker could be the child of God. So then, as you look at how the religion of Abraham evolved and then devolved, and even at many stages, Elohim was nothing but a tribal god, and had a lot of qualities similar to the pagan gods. And that's why it was easy for some of the Jewish people, when Elohim wasn't working out very well, they switched religion and they started listening to other priests and allowed them to come and build temples and so forth, and intermarried with some of the pagan clans or tribes around them. And the prophets hated that, because they saw the risk of the delusion of the religion, that losing that foundation, very basic belief. And that's why the commandments: I am God, you're only God. That's the beginning. We see that also in Islam. Islam begins, you become a Muslim by saying there is only one God, Allah, and there is no other God, because Muhammad dealt with a very similar scenario. He had what we call the Kaaba today in Mecca. That was a house full of idols. That was the idol worship center for all the tribes of Arabia. And they, and Muhammad saw a spiritual God. He studied with, he had a huge Christian influence around him, and there were Jewish towns and centers in Arabia that, through trade and so forth, he was exposed to a lot of that. So Muhammad's dynamic was very similar to Abraham's, and that if you study Islam, you'll see a lot of parallels in definition and its growth. Jesus was different. And Jesus in Islam is just another prophet because there is a continuation of prophets. When Jesus came, the Jewish people, the followers of Abraham, had not had a prophet for almost 600 years. And during that time, again, the religion, in a way, started losing its way. So by the time Jesus showed up, it was a temple-based center, with some people still taking the prophet ideas that the temple, God is everywhere, not just in the temple. God doesn't want you to just go and bring burnt offerings to the temple. Instead, God would want you to take care of the poor and the needy in your community. So that message, because there were no prophets, was starting to kind of dim down and almost disappear. And the religion was very strong in its structure. So they were counting, watching you if you washed your hands before you ate, watching you if you did something on the Sabbath. The religion lost its flexibility and its main mission, which is being the light of the world. Would have not had the Roman Empire come and attack and occupy that land. And maybe they would have, who knows? But if the message of Abraham of just growing good people on earth and expanding that goodness to everybody and all the nations, like his mission was supposed to be, that was what they were chosen to do. Not chosen as like, okay, you're better than the other people around you. You had a huge burden on you, the burden of making the world a better place. That's the mission of people who follow the Abrahamic religion. And Jesus saw that. And he said, okay, I am coming here to declare that there is only one sovereign presence everywhere on earth. And that presence is Allah. And that Allah is going to be with us everywhere. And the only thing that Allah does, it doesn't punish us, doesn't kill us, doesn't beat us on top of the head when we make a mistake. That Allah forgives, loves, provides, counsels, consoles when something bad happens. That's why he said, blessed are the mourners, for they shall be comforted. So that's the quality of God, the God of Jesus, very similar to Abraham's. And they did not like that. The people around him, the people loved it. The authority, that group number two, did not like it. So now the followers of Abraham started listening to him and joining his movement. And he wasn't calling them Christians. There was no term Christian even in existence in the life of Jesus. And then the second group absolutely hated it and started antagonizing him every chance they had. They were bickering, intellectually, and he knew them. He grew up amongst them. He knew their style. He knew how they debated, and that's why most of the time he actually answered them with another riddle similar to what they asked him, and got them in a bad position where they couldn't say yes or no. He constantly won that argument, and usually nipped it, basically stopped the discussion because they could not respond. And I talked about a lot of that stuff. Let me see how I'm doing on time. Perfect. So then, as I said, the non-followers of the God of Abraham were the ones who came and interacted with Jesus, were always aware of him. And as I said last week, Dr. Eriko mentioned the nuance of his interaction with the centurion. That tells you that this person did not just randomly went to Jesus and said, "Oh, come help me." He approached him in a specific way, respectful, cultural. Same thing with the when Jesus ran into the they call it Phoenician, Syrian woman when he was in Tyre and Sidon area. So think about that. If you have a map of Palestine and Lebanon, today's might be labeled Israel. Those areas are very like walking distance. A few days of walking, but you could make it, and they're very close. And when she approached him, and she approached as a mother who is hurting, he initially said, here I came for the people who know what I'm talking about. I came for the people who understand who Abraham is and who Isaac is and Moses and and David and Solomon, because that those people can grasp my story, understand my parable, understand when I say Allah or Elohim, you immediately you're with me there. I don't have to educate you and bring you up to speed. So, but she knew him and she knew his healing and she knew. Yeah, let me go because I'd love to read her faith. Very similar to the centurion, the Canaanite woman, 15:21 in Matthew. And if you have any questions, please. I don't see any questions coming in, and they don't have to be about tonight's topic, as you know, if you've been with us before. So in 15:21, and Jesus went out from thence, and he came to the border of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a Canaanite woman from these borders came out crying aloud and saying, Have mercy on me, O my Lord, son of David. See, she uses what? Son of David. So she's a Canaanite woman, or they call her Syrian, different Bibles, but a Canaanite woman is saying, son of David. So she knew he was a follower of the Abraham religion. My daughter is seriously afflicted with insanity. So her daughter had a major mental problem, mental illness. But he did not answer her. And so he just kept walking. It's like, okay, I'm not going to deal with you. I'm not here for this. And he always was in almost all the scenarios that we see with these interactions, he's just waiting for an opening, something that allows him to break that barrier, because there was a barrier, and that barrier was, you don't know my religion, you don't understand my commandments, you don't understand who David and so forth. But here, when she called him son of David, something like, okay, I'm listening, but I'm not paying attention. I'm not gonna stop. And his disciples came up to him and urged him, saying, Dismiss her, for she keeps crying aloud after us. So she was pestering them. She just probably followed them for a mile or two or three at that point, of just crying and begging and begging and crying and begging. And so, and he answered, saying to them, I am not sent to them. Okay, so not to her, to them. I am not sent except to the sheep which went astray from the house of Israel. So who? The sheep. Remember, we were just talking about John and the sheep. So he definitely, there's no doubt in my mind. Most people think he was a carpenter. When he was a young boy, he took care of sheep, because he uses that a lot. So, but which sheep which went astray from the house of Israel? So these are the people that I'm targeting, because we lost our way. We, the followers of the religion of Abraham, are no longer following the religion of Abraham. We lost our connection with God. We locked him in the temple. We set up all these rules. We're debating things about the afterlife. We're debating things about how many steps. We're debating things about eating and drinking. And we are not doing what we are supposed to be doing. But she came and worshipped him, saying, My Lord, help me. So now she made it to him, and probably because he's stopping and telling his disciples, I'm not going to deal with her. She caught up and she's now holding him. She's going like, please, I need your help. I'm a mother in pain. So, and that's the connection that's needed for the healing. That mom passion, love, faith in healing is what makes the difference. Jesus said to her, It is not right to make the children's bread, or to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. So again, that very Near Eastern way or very Aramaic way of speaking. What is he talking about? If somebody told you I'm not the children's bread, it's like I'm not asking you for any bread. So children's bread is the teachings, the belief system, the religion, if you want to call it that, though he didn't believe it was a religion, it was a way of living. So the belief system is not that I'm holding and I'm teaching is not supposed to be given, and listen to this, and throw it to the dogs. Do you see that the tribal mentality to this day in the Near East? When you dislike somebody, you call them dog or son of a dog. You know, even if somebody like cuts you off in the car, that's the curse that you put on them. You son of a dog. So it's the same mindset because the dogs are unclean in Islam to this day, and I know it's changing, and people are bringing pets that, and they always had dogs because dogs were a part of being a shepherd, but the dogs stayed outside the house. They were considered unclean. So when he said, "I'm not going to take the food, the belief and the teachings, and throw it to a dog," and at that point she could have said, "Buzz off! I don't care. I don't need you. I don't want you." Right? That would be probably our trained reaction when somebody calls you a dog. That's like a fighting words and insulting words. And to this day, watch out if you ever travel in the Near East. Don't refer to somebody as a dog. It's not cute. It's not like telling them you're a pet. It's telling them you're unclean and you're filthy. But she said, "Yes, my lord. Even the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from the master's table, and they live." So, but by crumbs we live. And that faith. So she took the insult and said, "Okay, I'll humble myself. I still need to heal my daughter. I am humbling myself. I'm saying anything, I'll take a crumb." Then Jesus said to her, "O woman, your faith is great." See, your faith is great. "Let it be to you as you wish." See, so he doesn't even dictate what the healing is. He knows that she knows what her daughter wants and needs to heal. So he gives her that. He says, I'm putting myself here, my way of healing at your desire, at your command, to let it happen. And her daughter was healed from that very hour. So, and I'm going to contrast that with the beginning of chapter 15, because this is verse 1. Then Pharisees and scribes from Jerusalem came up to Jesus. So they were sending them they were hearing about him. So they were sending these trained people, go and question him, go and check him out, go and see if he's different than what we thought he was. So these are Pharisees and scribes sent from Jerusalem. Why do your disciples disregard the tradition of the elders, and they do not wash their hands when they eat? You see what the religion became about? So they're sending people from Jerusalem. That's a heck of a journey to go up to Galilee, find where Jesus was, and then they want to debate with him about not Abraham and Allah and Elohim and doing good and being good with the widows and the orphans and having compassion and love in your life. What are they debating? The tradition of the elders. That's the thing that got filled during the time of no prophets. And that was always, tradition is so strong in the culture. And so they established a tradition. You wash your hands. They watched his disciples. They're not washing. I mean, do you see why also I said because it's oral culture, things spread. So somebody saw an apostle or a disciple grab something and eat it without washing their hand, and that news made it all the way to Jerusalem. And then they had a group of people prepared and trained to go back and try to trap Jesus and his movement. Okay, because they want to understand, why are you breaking our elders' tradition? This is what these are the unwritten rules that we live by, and maybe some of them are written. Jesus answered, saying to them, why do you also disregard? So remember I said his style of arguing, because he was so trained. Why, saying to them, why do you also disregard the commandment of God on account of your tradition? So he's flipping now the thing on them, the argument. For God said, honor your father and your mother, and whoever curses his father or his mother, let him be put to death. So if you're not nice to your parents, this is very old tradition, we'll take you out and kill you. But you say, whoever says to a father or a mother, whatever you may be benefited from me is korban, he need not honor his father or his mother. So instead of being good to their parents, what they were doing is they were taking, like if they were supporting them financially or giving them food or something, they would go and tithe it, an offering to God. So instead of giving you this sheep, you can grow it and eat it, mom and dad, I'm gonna go take it to the temple. And God is more priority than you. That's the tradition that developed. So Jesus knew their behavior. He knew how now they twisted the goodness that Abraham and even Moses was trying to instill in the community and society, taking care of each other, taking care of your parents and respecting them, is now twisted, and that the temple takes priority over even the relationship between the children and their parents. And they were educating that, and he knew that. Jesus knew that. Well, Korban. He need not honor his father or his mother. So you have rendered useless the word of God for the sake of your tradition. And that was he was fighting against that. So he was trying to bring the believers in the God of Abraham back to what is important, the teachings of Abraham, the teachings of the prophet, and his teachings. His teachings took it even at Jesus's teachings took it a level higher, and then really stressed not to not to practice violence, not to carry weapons, not to fight when people want to fight with you, not to escalate things, and really wanted people to behave as the peacemakers, as the good bosses, as the good children, as the good parents. So he was bringing back that goodness that Abraham envisioned and that the prophet envisioned, and he took it to that next level in a situation more difficult than what Abraham lived through, because now he's dealing with very militant Jewish groups. He's dealing with an occupation, a Roman occupation, a ruthless Roman occupation, two tax systems that are basically choking the land, the temple tax and the Roman tax. And then all this dislike amongst the group, the Samaritans and the Canaanites and the Phoenicians and the Roman citizens and the Gentiles with all their colors and nationalities and alliances and religions. So Jesus came into like a place that was just unbelievably difficult, and he's trying to raise this vine. Okay, because this is the John one of the, I think that's the one in chapter 15, is that he's saying we need to go back to the root. We need to go back to the root that is God. And then I am bringing you that connection back to God. And you, my disciples, will always be connected. You've been vetted, and you know how to navigate the world from that perspective. That's the power of Jesus that we till this day, and maybe next week if I speak, I'll talk about a little bit how that vine that was connected to Jesus slowly started splintering, and we ended up with today's Christianity, which is an absolute horrific mess that's causing a lot of pain in the world. And I hold myself as a Bible teacher, as well as anybody who is a part of this movement that we call Christianity, accountable for what's happening in the world. Our role has been so defined by Jesus and is so clearly stated in his parables, in his life story, that the way we veered away from it and the way we are actually allowing a lot of the atrocities in the world take place is absolutely horrific. And we need to wake up and we need to start doing what we are supposed to be doing, which is, first of all, take care of our close ones, take care of our community, and take care of our countries and our politicians, and raise the next generation of politicians to be people who Jesus would be proud of. They don't have to be Christians. They don't have to be in any nationality. They don't have to wear anything specific, a cross or a hat or a turban or anything like that. They just need to be good people. And this is where Jesus wanted us to be. He wanted us to plant those seeds and grow into the nation that would make God proud and would make us proud of each other. With that, I'll close and I'll look. I have a few questions. So, wow, and I didn't give myself a lot of time for questions. So, would the sheep, so the first question is, would the sheep that lost their way include the 10 tribes that were of the northern kingdom? I think by the time Jesus came, the sheep covered everybody, because by then that whole split of the 10, and if you're not familiar with the Hebrew Bible, at one point two tribes, Judah and the Levites, split and formed stayed actually in Jerusalem area in the southern area, and formed a kingdom. And the 10 tribes who felt like they were being abused by the tribe of Judah, because they were the bigger, most powerful ones and were taking care of the temple and so forth, they went and formed different alliances with different tribes and different nations even, and set up their capital around Damascus area. And so they were the northern and southern states. And when they were conquered by the Babylonians and the Assyrians, they were scattered everywhere. Those 10 tribes, because they were far away. Later, the Judah tribes got sucked into Babylon, but then a lot of them came back. So the simple answer is absolutely yes, the 10 tribes, but also the tribe of Judah and the Levites and everybody who was Jewish or claimed to be Jewish at the time of Jesus. He felt they had lost their way. And a lot of them who felt immediately that he is telling the truth joined his movement and became the foundation of what became later Christianity. He never intended it to be a different religion and get the movement away from the foundation, which is Abraham and the beloved father, Allah. He wanted us to be that nation, to continue to shed light, because there is no religion, no nationality in Jesus. There's only one kingdom, the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven. God is the sovereign ruler, and his rules are love, 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 and love one another, and don't carry weapons. And so when his first movement started, all these political systems, all these religious systems started collapsing, and they panicked. And that's why we saw in early Christianity, nations started converting. They converted not because they loved Jesus. They converted because the Jesus movement was absolutely dismantling the power of the kingdoms and the power of the armies and so forth. They were losing it. It was just collapsing. So instead, they co-opted it. They took Christianity and made it the religion of the nation. They made the army of Jesus, or the army of Christ. They couldn't do Jesus because Jesus was dead. So this idea of Christ, and they started dismantling even the Eastern religion started disappearing. And then we lost it, and we're still lost. Thank goodness that first, this is still here. though for many years it was kept away from normal people to read and understand. And then, unfortunately, it became all of this instead of Jesus only. So we'll continue to work on resurrecting the true Jesus message out of this, and bringing hopefully peace and love to this world. Great question. Are we witnessing the growth of Jesus in circumstances such as your current explanation regarding the mother who wants her child to be healed? Absolutely. Jesus's ministry always was evolving throughout his life. He was smart. He did the hard work and built a very strong foundation. And then in the experience in the desert, he kind of formed his ministry. But yeah, we see him evolving, and all the way to the cross, where he was okay to die, knowing that escape was going to destroy the movement, and resistance or changing the style was going to change the essence of the movement. So he said, I hope this cup passes, but if it's my cup, I'll drink it. Because he was not afraid. He didn't think that his life was more important than saving all of humanity. So, and saving his humanity not through his blood and being shed on the cross, saving his all of humanity through the teachings that he wanted to make sure continued. See, if he would have changed his style, ran away, he'd be forgotten. Carried weapons and defended himself, he would have changed the movement. He had to stay true till the last moment for his apostles and disciples and everybody who was watching, all the Gentiles who were watching, the Romans who were watching, to see that this man was a good man till the moment he breathed the last breath. And that was so critical that he did not. And to the last moment, God bless them for they do not, or forgive them for they do not know what they do, because they were lost. They had the sin of ignorance. They did not study him. They did not walk with him when they killed him. So those priests and the Roman soldiers and the Roman governor, they suffered from the sin he came to fix, the sin of ignorance. And that was the only thing he came here to do, is to open our eyes to ignorance and saying, there is a better world out there. There is a world that can thrive in peace, in love, in togetherness, not one that we live in, which always focuses on separation. How am I doing? Okay, I have 3 minutes. And your historical perspective of Abrahamic religion is inspirational. Thank you. What is your opinion of blasphemy used against Yeshua? Do you believe this is to be main reason for his crucifixion? Well, you only can blaspheme in Jesus's definition against God. He said, with me, you can say anything you want about me. The only thing that just do not talk badly about Allah. And that the crucifixion was, as I said, it's the ignorance. It's not knowing how beautiful, how lovely of a world who was planning to give us, and we're still trying to bring it to existence. And you can exist in it. You can have 100% of it in your lifetime. So again, don't think that you're missing out. If you follow Jesus and you follow his teachings, you can get that joy that he promises. You can get that peace, and he will attract the society and the community and the friends and the job and the life partner if you're looking for one, and the children that you're looking for who actually fit that. We can create it, and we can experience it. We can live it. I live it. I as much as I see the pain and all my historical connections to the Near East and stuff bring me some suffering, and some loved ones who I'm losing, they're dying because of what's happening in the Near East, and some people who I grew up as a refugee, and I saw the hate, and I saw that, and I was trained in it too. So I had to break through that. The kingdom of heaven is here. It's amongst us, and if we choose to exist in it, we can. And if we choose to expand it, that's the hard work, we still can. You can do that. Give us your example of what you are doing to do as you state, what we need to be doing. Example, what you do, and a few examples as I campaigned for good people to get into office as we are up against a host of adversities. As I said, you begin with love. You get, even when somebody on TV, you look at them and you go like, oh, if I could put my hands on them. That doesn't work. We just need to bless them, pray for them, and if we ever interact with them, ask them the humane questions, ask them the things that will open up their heart, and the thing that opens everybody's heart is love. And I know sometimes I get told that I'm a fool, that the hard ones will grab a gun and shoot you. I'm not worried about my life. I'm not afraid. And if I choose to actually do the work that to expand, when I choose, when I'm doing it, I do it, and I'm willing to take whatever comes back. So just be authentic, be yourself, and even when you're campaigning for good people, keep bringing good people to to the leadership. Though politics and Jesus are not necessarily a good mix, though there were many periods in history where good Christians were elevated into very prominent positions in different governments and in different economic settings, and some of them made it to be presidents of nations. So it's possible, but your alliance. It sometimes it's very hard to have the alliance to a nation and to the message of the kingdom, because there is only one kingdom, and if it's the one that guides you, you can be a president of a company, of a nation, hopefully not a leader of an army. But even we saw that in some cases in history where some military leaders, when they came and interacted with the followers of Jesus, they changed alliances, and then that military movement started wobbling, and some of it just became, actually they leveraged it to bring good instead of bad. They became the occupier because somebody was going to occupy, is their thinking, but now we're going to make it good for the people who we occupy. We're not going to abuse them, we're not going to levy heavy taxes on them, we're not going to take their kids away from them. Well, and it became kind of like a good world under a political system that's slightly enlightened. So, but keep up doing the good work. And I think I'm past my time by 2 minutes. I appreciate the questions. As I said, I might be speaking next week, if not the week after. So I'll try to cover them then. Thank you so much for your contributions. Thank you for your time with us. I love you all. I know that I'm blessed to have people who are hungry for the kingdom and hungry for the teachings of Jesus in my life. So go and have a lovely evening or morning or wherever you are. And until next week.